Hey, how's it going? It's your boy, Adam Moriarty's Challenger Coach here to bring you our 10.8 Low-Elo tier list, so let's get started. Starting off in the top lane, our S tier roster will be Wukong, Darius, Mordekaiser, and Set, while we also decided to add in a god tier where we put in Garen and Nasus. For our changes, we've got Treeman Lamaukai heading back into S tier, as both his win rate and play rate have increased since the last patch, making him the strongest Low-Elo tank at the moment. Renekton will move from A tier to S tier as he gains a huge advantage from the solo kill XP changes on this patch, as well as his stats being way lower than what they should be, as most people still do not go Bork into Black Cleaver. They instead just rush Black Cleaver in general and forget about Bork. This is actually just such a huge mistake because there is a 3% win rate difference between the two builds, so if you're playing a win lane, win game type of champion, then you gotta use the best early game build, which is Bork first. And then we've also got Aatrox moving down from A tier to B tier, as despite how strong he is in pro play, he doesn't do all that well in low elo even after the distance changes, so we're just gonna move him down. And to introduce our new god tier, our first champion highlighted is going to be Garen, who even after consecutive nerfs has only dropped to a 53% win rate and 11% pick rate, which is still just incredibly amazing. There's just something that's just a little bit unfair about a champion that runs straight at you and kills you in one combo. He just hits you with the Q, the spin, and then R, and you're probably dead, but he himself won't die. I don't know, he's just got that free regen, the incredible tankiness that his W gives him. It's really hard to stop a Garen in low elo. If you're looking to pick him up and you're wondering what his build is all about, you can go Trinity Force into Black Cleaver, but even after the nerf to the crit build, his Trinity Force into PD or Static Shift setup is still the best way to carry in low elo games, so I highly recommend going that. Next up, we've got everyone's favorite Grand Duelist, Fiora, going from A tier to S tier. With a lot of junglers going more farm oriented on this patch and solo kill XP going up, is really good for a champion like Fiora who snowballs really easily into 1v1 situation. That means if Fiora ever kills you in the pre-6, instead of her instinctively wanting to hit FF at 15 for whatever reason, you're probably going to want to consider that yourself. As for her build, I really wanted to clear something up because a lot of people have been testing Bork on her and it has been effective. It's not as effective as the normal core items like Ravenous, Trinity Force, and Death's Dance. They're simply better in terms of the stats. She's a champion that scales incredibly well off of raw AD due to how her vitals work, so even though she does do well with the Bork active and getting a little bit more attack speed, it is not better than her regular build, so please just use that. Our last highlight for the top lane is going to be Urgot going from B tier to A tier. He's received a lot of buffs in a row after Riot indirectly nerfed him a whole bunch of times in a row. So to fix that, they actually buffed his E stun duration, which I cannot express how important this is. It always correlates to a big win rate increase. They bug fixed his E so it actually gives him movement speed, and then his ult CD went way down, which is huge for a champion like Urgot who relies on his ultimate to score solo kills. The reason that his ult CD down in early ranks is important though is, like I've mentioned earlier, with solo kill XP going up and junglers not impacting the 1v1 lane as often, 1v1 focused lane stomping champions like Urgot are going to be stronger on this patch, and now that his kit actually works properly, he will be able to deal with some Bork abusing bruisers that are so popular. In terms of some matches you're looking to pick Urgot into, you can try Garen, Renekton, Darius, Jax, and Riven. Those are all really good matchups because his E actually has priority over their dashes and he's ranged, so he's got that going for him. In the jungle, our starting S tier roster will be Master Easy, Amumu, Zac, Shyvana, Graves, and for god tier, we've got Warwick and Wukong. For the changes to the list, we're gonna have a bunch because some really nice changes to the jungle came in this patch, most notably the XP changes and early home guards after death, which will both impact the effectiveness of early ganking junglers and skew the jungle more towards junglers who like to scale post level 9. First up, we've got Vi, Dr. Mundo, and Kayn all moving from B tier to A tier due to the positive impact the new jungle XP changes will have on them. In particular Kayn though, because he scales super well into the late game, but has one of the worst early games I think out of any single jungler. And if you don't think that, that's probably because you only play Kayn and you have no idea what a strong early game even remotely looks like. Fiddlesticks is another champion who's going to have an amazing time in the changed jungle, and I know some people have been saying he's really weak, and yeah, I'm one of those people, but post hotfix he's actually been doing really well in low elo with around a 51% win rate and a high play rate, and this is only going to go up once people actually learn how to play him and he's in a jungle environment that actually favors him. So we're going to slot him into A tier for now, but he could move down to B tier in the update. On a similar note, Evelynn, my favorite jungler, is no longer trash, and then we've got Karthus and Kindred who will all arrive in B tier this patch as champions who really like the decrease in early ganks and increase in post level 9 scaling. Champions who are not going to enjoy these changes are Echo, so we moved him down from S tier to A tier as he actually spikes in the mid game and falls off really hard late game from the jungle. Then we also got Olaf, Set, and Ivern, who will all move from A tier to B tier, although Set in particular is moving down mostly due to the W-based damage nerfs, although in my opinion they should be harsher because that champion's just broken. First up, we've got Wukong going from A tier to God tier. Similar to Garen, the nerfs recently to his kit have not been enough to stop him. He's just completely overperforming on multiple roles, but is incredibly popular in the jungle and actually has a better win rate in the jungle in low elo, which is around 54%, and still has a 6% play rate. In terms of how the new jungle is going to impact Wukong, he's actually a less gank-oriented jungler, so it should help him out, but even more important is champions like Lee Sin and Olaf, who are his worst jungle matchups, got a lot worse, which is fantastic for him. Which actually means on this patch, Wukong jungle in low elo will have absolutely zero losing matchups outside of AP Shyvana, which is one of the reasons why he's literally in God tier. The only champion that is capable of beating him is a fireball spamming dragon with a wizard hat on, who only has a very slight advantage. That's right, Wukong jungle has zero losing matchups in low elo, so please take advantage of them. Well, I did just finish talking about how she's the only thing that beats Wukong, so it only makes sense that we're going to move her from A tier to S tier, as she is one of the best scaling junglers in the game, and all of the jungle changes fit perfectly into what she wants to do. Which, I guess I should still explain it, but if you've ever seen a Shyvana, you should probably know by now. It's AFK farm and then shoot fireballs. She's actually so easy to play and pick up, and also fun, that I was able to teach Lokodoko how to play it in one game. So if he can do it, you probably can too. So not only is she so easy, a washed out TSM coach can pick her up, but she has the potential to reach God tier because she currently has a 53% win rate and 5% pick rate, and contrary to the popular belief in the community, she still does strong in a High-ELO solo queue, especially on this new patch. So I really recommend picking her up. Her best matchups are going to be pretty much into any tank jungler. She outscales any early ganking jungler like Lee Sin, and she's super good versus Kayn and Karthus, who also attempt to scale. Well, at that point you might be thinking to yourself, what does she lose to? Well, she does lose to one of the other God tier champions, Warwick, as well as champions who can match her scaling but still gank better than her. So Graves and Nunu are good choices, and she loses to Master Yi because he's even more broken in the late game than she is. Speaking of OP scaling junglers though, we got Graves moving from A tier to S tier, and you've probably noticed the trend here, but yeah, champions that are good at post level 9 are going to be really good on this patch. He is one of the biggest abusers of these new XP changes, both in high and low elo, so he's a strong pickup for anyone that's looking to climb into gold, into diamond, into challenger, into LCS, potentially, who knows. As for his setup, you're still going to want to go the phase rush and then pick up Death Dance 3rd or 4th. It's an amazing build that gives him the mobility and chase down potential he needs while being too tanky to really die. Although he still has the option to build some lethality when snowballing, so don't forget to do that. He does well in terms of matchups into low range champions who don't scale like Nocturne and Olaf, and especially Lee Sin. He just stomps that champion at lower levels of play. He's super bad into Nunu though, and can struggle into things like Echo or Kha'Zix who have the damage and mobility to keep up with him. For the mid lane S tier roster, we're gonna have Ahri and Katarina, with our god tier being Fizz and Diana. For the changes, we've got Nocturne moving from B tier to A tier, as the nerfs he received for mid lane didn't really do that much, and he still sits around a 54% win rate. Zoe's just gonna be taken straight off the list, sent to the Shadow Realm, because despite how popular she is in LCS, she just does really awful in low elo, while Wukong and Garen have extremely high win rates but extremely low play rates, so we just took them off the list as well. But I should mention that Bruisers or Juggernauts in low elo still perform really well in the mid lane when off-rolled, especially things like Kled and Renekton as counters to assassins. But they're just so unpopular, I don't really think they deserve to be on a mid lane section of a tier list, but they are still options, so just remember that. That means that our first highlight is actually going to be Diana, who moves from S tier to God tier. She is the strongest low elo mid laner along with Fizz, who have a staple 53.5% win rate in low elo and a 10% pick rate for pretty much the entirety of the season since her changes. She has a lot of things going for her in her kit. She's got really good solo kill potential in lane, she can easily farm, she can easily split push, and I think it's one of the fastest in the entire game. And she's got AoE wombo combos for team fights, along with being tanky enough that it's pretty easy to play her. She's an extremely versatile assassin pick. Also, I'm not gonna lie, Diana is just a dumb champion when she's strong, because all of her abilities are either instant cast or can't be missed, and I mean, let's be real now, that Q is a laser beam, it cannot be dodged anymore. And she has the potential to outplay you with multiple dashes and an interrupt on her ultimate, and she's just really tanky, so the fact that you can outplay her and she can outplay you, definitely in her favor. In terms of her build, real quick, the Roa into Nashor's Tooth build is the standard, but at high levels of play, most people are preferring to go Pro Belt into Nashor's Tooth and just skipping Roa altogether, as that slight extra burst and mobility plus CDR in the early game can really help her in the skirmishes more than the mana and the slight tankiness increase of a Roa, so try it out. Well, you've probably noticed by now that AP assassins in low elo are probably the strongest thing out there, so let's go over a pick that completely counters them, and that's Galio, who's gonna go from off the list to A tier. The buffs that he received actually helped him out a lot, and one of the things that I've mentioned in terms of stats that I have in past videos is that the top 10 most played mid laners are 8 out of 10 of them are assassins, which is huge for an anti-assassin pick like Galio because it means he's gonna have a lot of good matchups. Galio, like most tanks who got buffed in Season 10, have the damage to actually one rotation people once they have a couple of items, and he builds more like an AP bruiser similar to Sylas than an actual tank if you want to carry in low elo games. In terms of matchups, he's really good into champions like Sylas, Akali, LeBlanc, where he can actually interrupt their damage abilities while being too tanky to really die, but still being able to one-shot them because he's Galio. I would be careful when picking him though, he doesn't do that well into AD matchups, and he can suffer versus zone control mages with consistent damage like Vel'Koz, Anivia, or Cassiopeia in low elo because they all outrange him, but they still have the DPS to kill him. That means that our last highlight for the mid lane will be Ahri moving from A tier to S tier. She currently holds a 52.5% win rate and an 8% pick rate, but I expect her power to grow in this patch as she does get solo kills pretty easily at level 6 if you go electrocute, which does perform better in low elo than Glacial Augment does. The other advantage of actually maining Ahri right now is that she is a champion who is beloved by Riot and will likely be the first champion to reach 100 skins. And even though I'm saying that is kind of a joke, I actually think it might happen, and Ahri historically never gets nerfed too hard, and she doesn't stay out of the meta for very long, especially in low elo, so you have that longevity where she's always going to be pretty viable during your climb. Her main advantage, of course, is that she is a safe champion who does best into control mages who rely on skill shots like Orianna, for example, or assassins who rely on dashes, things like Akali, LeBlanc, Kiana. If you time your charm properly, they are still skill matchups, of course, but you can still beat them. She does not do well though versus assassins who have lower ult CDs than she does and can one-shot her, so things like Fizz, Katarina, or Diana, they all do really well into her because they have the mobility to keep up with her but still kill her. Moving down to the bot lane, our starting S tier roster will be Jinx, Ashe, Jhin, Caitlyn, Vayne, and for the first time ever in Season 10, Miss Fortune is not going to be an S tier, because she's actually going to be the only one in God tier. For our changes, we've got Draven moving from B tier to A tier thanks to his buff W and new Muramana build. You can also check that one out on our champion pages, as well as Veigar moving from S tier to A tier as his popularity is far too low to sustain that rank, although he is still pretty strong. That means that our first highlight champion is going to be Miss Fortune, who moves from S tier to God tier. She is the best solo queue champion in bot lane with a 53% win rate and a 20% pick rate. No other champion is even remotely close. And the best thing about her, besides the millions of skins that she has, is that she is the single best AD carry in high-elo solo queue too, meaning you could actually main her all your way to Challenger. Then you can main her while you're in Academy. You can also main her while you're in LCS. Then when you sign that TSM contract, you can make them put an MF poster in your room, but you'll probably get kicked from that team after you lose the playoffs for being an MF1 trick. And then, you know, because they made you play Aphelios every single game. Then though, because you're a TSM member, you'll join C9 where Reaper will let you play MF every single game and you'll win a championship. All of that can be yours though if you pick Miss Fortune. Alright, jokes aside, I'll make this section a bit shorter because it should be pretty well known by now that if you main bot lane and you want to climb, maining Miss Fortune is the best way to currently do it with the least amount of effort required. Next up, we've actually got Ashe moving from A tier to S tier with a 52% win rate currently and a 10% pick rate, which is really good. That's of course before the buffs to her Q come in, where that late game DPS and mid game DPS from the Q attack speed increase is going to be really nice for her. She does have a new Halo Blades build with Trinity Force and it's becoming a little bit more popular, but as of right now, it's actually performing worse than her normal build in low elo while being less popular, so I really wouldn't recommend using it as of right now. Instead, just use her normal Bork Rune on Hurricane build. The reason why Ashe though is such a powerful champion in low elo is Ashe provides so much to a team composition. She's got consistent CC, she's got poke, she's got strong laning phase, she can initiate, and she's got pick potential, while still having strong teamfight DPS, which is why she does so well. She's a champion that's always going to be useful, even when your support player roams while the lane is slow pushing so you lose all your farm, she's still going to be able to do stuff, and she can make a really shitty team comp become less shitty. She's very similar to Twisted Fate in that sense. And lastly, a champion who really doesn't help a team comp at all, but is still going to be getting some buffs this patch and it's going to be pretty good. We've got Tristana moving from B tier to A tier. She did receive some buffs to her E damage, which is going to help her in terms of taking towers down, clearing waves, or even in the 1v1. But for her build, one of the things you're going to want to do is actually rush IE over Stormrazor, because statistically that build is doing a lot better, which is going to help her ability to snowball in the early game, which is actually going to take a small hit due to the XP nerfs to dual lane kills. On top of that though, enchanters are likely to become really popular on this patch, so her scaling and ability to 2v8 fights is going to be really good. So tentatively we're going to put her at A-, although she could be B+ instead. I do want to issue a warning though. Currently she has terrible solo lane stats, so even though she might be fun, I'd advise against it, because this E buff is not going to be enough to make her a viable top laner or mid laner, at least in low elo. She got around like a 45% win rate. Even Vayne top does way better than that, and while I'm at it, Kalista nerfs essentially killed her as a top laner in low elo, so don't play that either. I mean, I guess it's still up to you. You can play whatever you want. These are just my suggestions if you actually want to win. Last up, our support S tier roster will be Leona, Sona, and Brand, while in God tier we've got Blitzcrank and Nami. For the changes to the support list, first up we actually have Galio being a viable support option now, so we're going to move him into the B tier, and is incredibly good with Senna for the fasting strat, so you can try that out if you've got a dual partner. Then we'll be moving Swain from S tier to A tier, as his lower play rate is kind of an issue for him and it's been decreasing as of late, so he's going to move to A+, while Set, due to his nerfs and below 50% win rate and low elo, will move to the Shadow Realm for now. First up for the highlights, we actually have Nami moving from S tier to God tier. For this one, a lot of people might be like, wait, what? But actually, in terms of her stats, they're absurd, okay? Compared to even the other God tier champions in other roles. She's got a 54% win rate and a 10% pick rate, which is absolutely nuts, which is only going to increase this patch, because one of the reasons people are scared to pick enchanters in competitive play is due to how easily they can be ganked, but with ganking junglers not being as strong this patch, it's just free money for Nami. Nami is a champion that is free to bully lane with her spam heal, and then she can still scale into team fights like a normal enchanter. It is not a coincidence that the most lane dominant enchanter is doing the best currently in low elo. Not only that, but she pairs perfectly with all of the S tier AD carries and only has one losing matchup, which happens to be the other God tier champion Blitzcrank, so if you hate champions like Lux or Morgana pickers, Nami destroys both of those, so give her a shot. For our next change, we have Soraka moving from B tier to A tier. With the gank-oriented junglers taking a hit this patch, it really helps out scaling champions like Soraka, who are just gods in teamfights still. Plus, she did get a nice little buff this patch. She has the mana reduction on her Q, so when the Soraka player misses 1 out of 5 Qs, it doesn't really matter because she can just keep spamming it, because the mana cost on it is so low now, and she's got the base mana increase to use it an extra time. It's really nice for her laning phase, which is pretty much all that matters in Season 10 solo queue, so it's a big deal. In terms of her matchups, she has a good counter to champions like Rakan, Morgana, Shaco, and even Pyke, because her E can just cancel the Pyke Q, so I know people have trouble with that matchup, but statistically it's really good for her. She is unfortunately bad into Blitzcrank and bad into roaming supports in general like Bard. And then she struggles into some of the other enchanters who outscale her like Sona and Taric. But if you're versus those all-in matchups like I mentioned, like Blitzcrank or even Thresh, you can actually just swap to Relic Shield and Guardian to make things a little bit easier on yourself. Speaking of Bard though, we actually moved him from B tier to A tier on this patch, and it's really rare for him to perform in low elo because, I'm gonna be honest, he's kind of a troll champion. Like, even if you're playing Bard perfectly, the amount of times your teammates might accidentally take your portal and die, or maybe even you just mess up your ultimate and kill your team, it causes a lot of problems if you're not playing him perfectly, so he historically doesn't do that well. But, because it's just like trickle down League of Legends, Bard is probably the de facto best high-elo support right now in solo queue, and when you combine that with the rapid fire Deadman's plate build, which is good for carrying in low elo, he's doing well in this bracket too. I mean, you can still use his regular redemption setup, but I highly recommend rapid fire Deadman's plate. It's just that his roam heavy playstyle is perfect for carrying solo queue games in any bracket, because he also has the DPS to carry fights later on in the game. When you combine that with that 52% win rate and 4% pick rate, we expect that to even increase on this patch. He's going to be a pretty good pickup. That's it folks, so thank you for watching our video, and be sure to check out our other content on this channel as well as at mobalytics.gg. As always, I'm Adam Moriarty Isles, and may the new and old solo queue gods be with you.